Thanks a lot for coming in.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Something about this community appeals to you?
This is a wonderful place to live.
For Kelowna Now, this is Camp Mulgat. And we're joined by Kelowna Lake Country MP, Stephen Fuhrer. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
You were just in Africa.
I was.
In the war-torn country of Mali.
Yeah, I was in Senegal and I was in Mali, both.
So those are dangerous parts of the world to go to, so, you know.
Senegal's not, Mali is.
Right. And so Canada has been on the ground. We've had Canadian troops there for how long? What's going on there? Why are we there? And then we'll talk about our eventual pullout.
Sure. Well, Mali's a landlocked African country, central west. It is a country of about 18 million people. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. They have massive food security issues, water security issues, physical security issues, governance problems. There's just lots of problems there. And it's not a failed state, but it's a failing state. So it's very fragile. I would say it's a fragile state. It's probably the best way to describe it. It's divided into three kind of chunks, if you think. The north, there's a ceasefire in the north, but there's no government aid going up to the north. So there's problems up there. Most of the violence that we see right now in Mali is in the center part. And the closest that you have to normal in Mali is in the southwest corner. The population's due to grow by a factor of 2 times. So from 18 million to 36 million people by 2035, which isn't long from now. Much of the country is not educated, and women and men are not equal in that country. So there is a ton of problems there. And if the state fails, you're going to see a bunch of people that can't stay there anymore because of a whole bunch of factors looking for a place to go. So the people there now want to stay there; it's their home. But if there's nothing to stay for,
it's going to be refugee.
It would be there would be a migration probably that we've never seen in a long time. So people want to stay. We want them to stay. We want to help them. And that's kind of the situation on the ground there.
So
right
it sounds like the job there goes way beyond military.
Oh yeah, development aid, sure. Military is only one aspect of this. It needs development aid, it needs support, governmental support, it needs physical security, it needs a whole bunch of things. So the operation that Canada's involved in right now is a UN-led mission. It's called MINUSMA, and we have about a 250 troop contribution in Mali and about 50 troops in Senegal. And what we're doing there in Mali is we're providing air medical evacuation to the 12,000 troop big UN MINUSMA effort. It's a critical piece. That big effort grinds to a halt without medical evacuation, so it's a critical component of that, although it's not a big one. It's a critical one. Canada signed up to do it for a year, and that year is going to be coming up at the end of July 31st. When we were there, we were there for 5 days total between Senegal and Mali. And we spoke to politicians, senior military people, ambassadors, you name it. We spoke to everybody. And we were really, really impressed from what we heard and what we saw. There's a ton of gratitude for Canada's participation there. And what we saw was Canadian troops have set the bar in that task the highest they've ever seen it. Like, we're bringing blood products into the field. Nobody's done that before. Even very capable Western European countries like Germany and the Dutch, they didn't do it. Canada's doing it. So it's a huge capability that we're providing. It's a well-needed capability we're providing. I think that the reasons that we're there were pretty evident when we were there. We don't want that state to fail. So there's a humanitarian and compassionate reason for Canada to be there. That's what we do as Canadians. There's a massive security reason why we should be there, because if it does fail and all these people flood into Europe, those are our allies, French, the Italians.
I can hear you laying out the answers, but I think there's a lot of people that go, come on, we have got enough problems close to home. Why are we having adventures in Africa?
Well, this is what we do. Again, humanitarian, compassion, security. And the other one that I didn't know that I learned when I was there is we have an economic interest as well. And I think that's probably tertiary to the main reason, but I learned that 60% of their export is mining or gold, and 60% of that 60% is Canadian. Right. So there's a whole host of reasons why we should be there, and we are there, and everyone's happy that we're there. and we've committed for a year. That ends July 31st.
Okay, now that's the problem. Prior to the interview, you were saying that our plan is to extract our troops around the end of July, and the next country to sort of step in and take over is Romania, but they're not ready at that time. Is that
Well,
right?
from what we know right now, they're looking at being ready by October 15th, and we're leaving in July 31st. So there's a gap there. There's some things the UN can do, contract servicing, and so there's some options they have. None of the options are as good as having a combat-capable medevac capability, which militaries provide, not civilian contractors. So what we're trying to do is to ensure that we can either minimize that gap or help Romania in some way, either get there quicker or to facilitate the space between us leaving and them coming in, making it less of an impact.
Extend our.
Well, here's the problem.
there?
Well, here's the problem with extending. It sounds simple. Let's just extend. It isn't as simple as it sounds, and I'll tell you why. When recently Canada and a bunch of other nations have agreed to contribute capacity and capability to peacekeeping efforts in a new way. And what I mean by that is we have our militaries highly capable. We can integrate with the U.S. being kind of like the benchmark for militaries across the world in land, air, sea, special forces, and command. We have leadership and training capacities that not many other countries have. And our really only detriment is we're not very big. Like, that's it. Yeah. Other than that, we're capable, we're strong, we show up, we help.
But we don't have great numbers.
The size of our military is relatively small. What we decided to do is how can we benefit, or how can we force multiply what we're good at, those capabilities I just mentioned, and add bigger value, taking into consideration that we're relatively small.
Right.
And that means that, maybe we won't take our total contingent and put it somewhere and ask it to do something, but we'll take parts of it and we'll put it in and add value to bigger operations. Like MINUSMA is 12,000 people. Right. We're putting 250 people in there that is making that operation safer and more effective. Instead of just 200, that's only 250 people. It's a very small percentage. We're also very effective in Africa because we speak French. And a lot of Africa is French speaking. Many countries in Africa are French speaking. So by doing it this way, we're really capitalizing on our strengths and making us more effective, and that's what this is all about. Part of it, though, is also...
So why can't we pull out?
Well, okay.
This is a long answer.
I know it's a long answer. So here's the deal. These SMART pledges, which is capitalizing on your strengths, also includes defined periods of time. So in this case, it's a year.
Right.
And the reason that matters is because a lot of countries don't get involved in things because they're worried about never getting out, right? We'd love to help. We've got the capacity and capability, but we're concerned that if once we put stuff in...
We'll just be entrenched.
Yeah, we'll never get out. And we've seen examples of that throughout history. So if in this new SMART pledge concept, if we say we're going to give you these troops, this capacity for this amount of time, it's important that we stay in that sphere so that other countries will continue to contribute and everyone pulls their weight. That's the concept here.
Right.
When you run in, but it's just a new concept. So now here we go.
You don't want to right away make exceptions. You're just trying to get that.
We're just trying to get it done. Do we set a precedent now so the next guys come along and say, hey, listen, this sounds great, but guess what?
Yeah, you don't want
We're
to
never
saying,
leaving.
so you say a year, you mean 15 months, don't you?
Exactly. This is my whole point. So that's a bit of a dilemma. I know the country, I know the military or the Department of Defense and the government's very sensitive to this. It really matters. Like our exit will matter as much as our entry and our time that we were there. So I know we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that that capability gap is reduced and that Romania can get in there.
Right.
What that looks like, though, right now, I don't know. And simply just extending obviously adds problems that we just discussed.
Right, okay. But obviously there's going to be conversations about exactly what that solution should be.
Sure.
But let me ask you this, how did going there change the way you view Canada's activities in that part of the world?
Well, I mean, did
it affect you?
Yeah, it did in two ways. First of all, we're super proud. I mean, everyone we talked to, the people on the ground in Gao, the Germans, the German commander came up to me, the Dutch commander came up to me and said, thank you, like, this is unbelievable. We don't want you guys to leave. Like, this adds big value. Like I said, the politicians, the ambassadors, It was really heartwarming, and we should be very, very proud of our contribution. It also, and I'd said this to you before in another interview, it really puts things back here into perspective for me. I mean, we have our own problems. There's no question about that, and we're trying to, solve our own problems. But even on our most challenging day here in Canada, if you compare it to what else is going on in the world,
Yeah.
we're very lucky here.
We're doing pretty well.
We're doing very well here.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and telling us about your journey.
Thank you.
Let's hope that we come up with a good solution. And I'm going to start learning more about Mali myself.
Thanks.
Thanks. And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.